June 6, 1944. Dawn breaks over the churning waters of the English Channel. 160,000 Allied troops, crammed into landing craft, face a formidable steel curtain, Nazi defenses lining the French coast. This is D-Day, the largest amphibious assault in history, and our destination, Omaha Beach.
Welcome back to the channel, my fellow Americans. Today's topic is D-Day and the honoring of our soldiers and our honorable presidents. We're going to start it off with a moment of silence with some pictures from D-Day of our troops at Normandy. And we're going to go straight into a video clip of the Tuskegee Airmen in honor of those African-American soldiers in their contribution to World War II on the behalf of the United States.
At Freeman Airfield in Indiana, typical training takes place, which is being duplicated in many other centers throughout the country. These boys will fly bombers, the B-25 type. Briefing is important. It pays to know what it's all about before hitting the sky trails with those dynamite eggs. Their mission fully understood, the trainees don parachutes and get ready for flight. Now they're going to have the chance of putting their classroom studies into practical use, for this is just what they'll have to do when overseas. Nice eggs to lay on the Nazis and the Japs, and you can well understand how eager these boys are to get training over with and see some real action. They're off. The bombs will be dropped on prepared targets. Very soon they'll be doing this over enemy strongholds.
That was the Tuskegee Airmen. How you like that, Charlie Kirk? How you like that, apartheid baby, Elon Musk, and the rest of you Caucasian males talking this different stuff about DEI when it comes to flying planes? Well, that was fighter jets. Back in 1945, African Americans, their squadron was a part of World War II. They had to go through the same exact training as their white counterparts. So you're talking now about not being comfortable or don't want to fly on the plane if there's a black or African American or person of color in the pilot's seat. Well, today's commercial planes have autopilot. You can take off and land, and you can put it in cruise control, which is autopilot on the airplane. So stop with the bull crap about African Americans being second class. They flew fighter jets in 1945 as a part of the coalition with the world as American soldiers, fighter pilots, and defeated Nazi Germany. That's correct. African American fighter pilots, Elon Musk. Next up, we're going to be hearing from some of our previous presidents in honor of D-Day. over on European soil at Normandy. We're going to hear from the Honorable Jimmy Carter, the Honorable George W. Bush, President Barack Obama, the Honorable Ronald Reagan, and the Honorable Joseph R. Biden. I have a special treat for you for George H.W. Bush. He was a fighter pilot in World War II. So I have a special treat for you coming up later on in the video. So let's hear what these presidents had to say at these ceremonies over in Europe during their tenures as presidents of the United States.
On the 6th of June, 1944, the Allied forces came to the beaches known to us as Omaha, Utah, Juneau, Gold, and Sword to begin a heroic action leading to the liberation of Europe.
And on this side of the channel, through binoculars and gun sights, German soldiers could see coming their way the greatest armada anyone had ever seen. In the lead were hundreds of landing craft, carrying brave and frightened men. Only the ones who made that crossing can know what it was like. They tell of the pitching deck, the whistles of shells from the battleships behind them, the white jets of water from any enemy fire around them, and then the sound of bullets hitting the steel ramp that was about to fall.
On these beaches, the forces of freedom turned the tide of the 20th century. During those first hours on bloody Omaha, nothing seemed to go right. Landing craft were ripped apart by mines and shells. Tanks sent to protect them had sunk, drowning their crews. Enemy fire raked the invaders as they stepped into chest-high water and waded past the floating bodies of their comrades. And as the stunned survivors of the first wave huddled behind a seawall, it seemed the invasion might fail.
By 8:30 a.m., General Omar Bradley expected our troops to be a mile inland. 6 hours after the landings, he wrote, we held only 10 yards of beach. In this age of instant commentary, the invasion would have swiftly and roundly been declared, as it was by one officer, a debacle. But such a race to judgment would not have taken into account the courage of free men.
These are the boys of Puente Hope. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are the champions who helped free a continent. And these are the heroes who helped end a war.
President Joe Biden is on his way back to the United States after spending the past several days in France to commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Today, he delivered a speech on the legacy of Pointe du Hoc, where Army Rangers scaled 100 feet seaside cliffs and destroyed German forces' weapons. President Biden called on Americans to defend democracy from threats at home and abroad.
Feared dictator had conquered a continent, had finally met his match. Because of them, the war turned. They stood against Hitler's aggression. Does anyone doubt that they would want America to stand up against Putin's aggression here in Europe today?
When Ronald Reagan was president, he gave a speech at the same location on the 40th anniversary of D-Day. While Biden referenced Russia's war against Ukraine 4 decades ago, Reagan drew comparisons to the Cold War struggle against the Soviet Union.
There you have it, our honorable United States presidents over the past few decades showing real honor Next up, it wouldn't be right without having our number 45 and 47. I hate to even mention this one in this video, but I'm going to go ahead on and do it anyway. You all should know who I'm talking about by now. The dishonorable one who had to say something bad about the Honorable John McCain because he was captured. The one who had Dr. over a period of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 maybe, write him a fraudulent deferment because of bone spurs. So let me play a little something for you, and then I'll come back and we'll end it up with the Honorable George H.W. Bush and his contribution to World War II. And after that, it'll be a ending video of some footage from World War II. And that's going to end the video. So this is the last you'll hear from me, but just stay tuned for this last footage. And I appreciate you tuning in once again. All I ask is that you like and subscribe and even share with your friends the video. This is an honorable one, and I really, really had to do this in honor of our World War II fighter pilots, our World War II soldiers, our World War II honorable presidents. So thanks a lot for tuning in. I'll see you guys on down the road.
So I never liked him as much after that because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you agree with that?
He's a war hero because he was captured, okay? You can have, and I believe perhaps he's a war hero, but right now he said some very bad things about a lot of people.
A New York Times investigation is bringing the president's past back into light. The report uncovered evidence that 2 doctors from Queens, New York, helped the president dodge the Vietnam War in 1968.
Dr. Larry Braunstein was a podiatrist who rented a medical office from the president's father, Fred Trump Sr. Braunstein's daughter says that her father diagnosed Trump with bone spurs as a favor to Fred so that he wouldn't have to go fight. So joining us now is the investigative reporter for this article, Steve Eder. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. When this popped up on sort of my news feed, I thought, oh, man, this is such an interesting thing. And you guys at the New York Times have been really relentless in kind of picking apart and some of the things that the president has said about his past. So set the stage for us, though. You know, who was Donald Trump at this time? Had he graduated from military college? Was he likely to go to Vietnam? Was he a candidate?
Yeah, so this
Not
is
military
50
college,
years
sorry,
ago.
military high school, military
Valley
high
Forge,
school.
Valley Forge,
Yeah.
Military high school.
Yeah.
It was 1968. He was fresh out of University of Pennsylvania, with the Wharton program, and here he is. It's a big point in the Vietnam War. And he was, that summer after graduation, he was declared available for service, called to get his exam done. And at that point, what the records show and what the history shows is that he was ultimately given a medical exemption, a temporary medical exemption. And that's where my reporting kind of picked up, was trying to sort of delve into the history of that.
So let me just read what the campaign said when the president was then candidate Trump about those bone spurs. It said this: while attending the University of Pennsylvania's prestigious Wharton School of Finance, Mr. Trump received a minor medical deferment for bone spurs on both heels of his feet. The medical deferment was expected to be short-term, and he was therefore entered in the military draft lottery, where he received an extremely high number, 356 out of 365.
Returning now to our coverage of George H.W. Bush and his many years of service to this country. David Martin tonight shares the story of how it all began for the former president as a young naval aviator in the Pacific during World War II.
Like many wartime pilots, Lieutenant Junior Grade Bush named his airplane after a girl back home. Only he had to call it Barbara 3 because he had lost his first 2 planes, one in training and one to enemy fire. That's how dangerous flying was in World War II. There were 16 pilots in Lieutenant J.G. Bush's squadron, according to retired Admiral Samuel Cox, Director of Naval History.
Half of them were killed or captured before the end of the war.
His service records show Cadet Bush was average in flight school. One instructor described him as somewhat eccentric. He flew the Avenger, with its three-man crew, the heaviest plane the Navy dared to fly off an aircraft carrier. His target on September 2, 1944, was a Japanese radio transmitter on the island of Chichijima. A Navy animation shows his plane being hit as he began his run into the target, but staying with it until he dropped his bombs before trying to get back over water.
What would happen to flyers who parachuted down onto the island? The Japanese executed all of those who survived.
Out over the water, he told his crew to bail out.
2 parachutes came out of the aircraft. One opened, which was presumably Lieutenant J.G. Bush. The other, what's called a streamer, is that the parachute didn't open.
Neither of the crewmen were seen again. Lieutenant J.G. Bush landed in the water and swam to a life raft.
The Japanese came out after him. Some fighters from the flight were able to strafe the Japanese boats and keep them away during the 4 hours that Bush was actually in the water.
A U.S. submarine got to him before the Japanese could.
Bush was actually surprised when, out of nowhere, this submarine surfaces, right next to him.
20-year-old George Bush spent 30 days on that submarine, thinking, as he later told the author James Bradley, "Why had I been spared? What did God have in store for me?" David Martin, CBS News, The Pentagon.
June 6, 1944. Dawn breaks over the churning waters of the English Channel. 160,000 Allied troops, crammed into landing craft, face a formidable steel curtain, Nazi defenses lining the French coast. This is D-Day, the largest amphibious assault in history, and our destination, Omaha Beach. We return to Omaha Beach not to glorify war, but to remember the sacrifice, the human cost of liberty. The heroes of D-Day, fallen and living, remind us that freedom is not free. It is bought with blood, with courage, with unwavering resolve.
We will remember them. We will remember them.
Omaha Beach was approximately 6 miles long, and it was separated into sectors. Charlie, Dog Green, Dog White, Dog Red, Easy Green, Easy Red, Fox Green and Fox Red. It also had natural exits off the beach called D1, D3, E1, E3 and F1. But remember, the enemy had positioned strong points overlooking those exits. We'll come back to the strong points in a minute, but first, let's start at the beginning. On the morning of June 5th, Eisenhower, assured by Chief Meteorologist James Martin Stagg of a break in the weather, announced, "Okay, we'll go." Within hours, an armada of 3,000 landing craft, 2,500 other ships, and 500 naval vessels, escorts and bombardment ships, began to leave English ports. That night, 822 aircraft, carrying parachutists or towing gliders, roared overhead to the Normandy landing zones. They were a fraction of the air armada of 13,000 aircraft that would support D-Day. At 6:30 a.m., the deafening roar of naval guns shattered the pre-dawn stillness. Bombers plastered the German defenses, but many bunkers remained untouched. As landing craft approached the shore, German machine guns unleashed a deadly hail of fire. Along the shoreline lurked hidden concrete fortresses known as Widerstandsnester, German strong points. Imagine this: towering cliffs dotted with machine gun nests, barbed wire snaking across the sand, and pillboxes bristling with enemy troops. These weren't Hollywood props. These were the teeth that Omaha Beach bared at the advancing Allies. Each strong point, numbered WN1 to WN74, was a self-contained fortress boasting impregnable concrete walls up to 3 meters thick, designed to withstand artillery barrages, fiendish firepower machine guns and mortars strategically placed to cover every inch of the beach, and interconnected tunnels allowing the Germans to move, resupply, and adapt to the attack. Why were these strongpoints so vital to the Germans? Omaha Beach wasn't just a landing zone, it was a gateway to Nazi-occupied Europe. The Germans knew if the Allies breached these strongpoints, the floodgates would open. They were the linchpin, the Achilles heel of the entire defense. So, how hard were they to crack? Imagine yourself charging a concrete wall while bullets crackle around you. That's what the D-Day forces faced. Initial bombardments barely scratched the thick walls. Tanks bogged down in the sand, making them easy targets. Every inch of the advance was a desperate fight, a brutal tug-of-war against steel and death. Men stumbled out of the boats, waist-deep in water, bullets kicking up spurts of foam around them. Barbed wire snagged them, drowning many before they even reached the beach. Exploding shells sent body parts flying. The sand churned to crimson mud. Yet they kept pushing forward, man after man, body after body. Slowly, agonizingly, the tide turned. Strong points one by one were neutralized or overrun. Their guns fell silent, their concrete carcasses testament to the ferocity of the battle. Reinforcements arrived, breaching the German lines at critical points. With each agonizing meter gained, the dream of liberation took shape. The strong points of Omaha were slain, not by magic, but by the unrelenting spirit of men who wouldn't be broken. Their courage, their ingenuity, and their sacrifice. These are the weapons that cracked the concrete and paved the way for freedom. By June 7th, the beachhead consisted of 3 separate sectors, that of the British and Canadians, between Caen, not taken, and Bayeux, that of the US V Corps, between Port-en-Bessin and Saint-Pierre-du-Mont, and that of the US 7th Corps, west of the Vere River behind Utah Beach. Here we can see Omaha Beach back then, compared to how it looks today. Now it's time for 3 fun facts you might not have known about D-Day. The term D-Day is used by the armed forces to refer to the beginning of an operation. The D stands for day, meaning it's actually short for Day-Day, which is nowhere near as catchy. Before the Allied attack in June 1944, there would have been many D-Days. However, it was so iconic that it came to be used solely when referring to the beginning of Operation Overlord. The D-Day invasion was actually planned for the 5th of June. However, in true British fashion, the weather was too bad for the ships to set sail. It was therefore postponed until the day after. As the invasion was the first of its kind, there was no existing equipment with which to carry it out. Not only were the Mulberry Harbours invented, so were the iconic landing crafts. These had a ramp that dropped down into the sea, meaning troops didn't have to scramble over the side to get out. On Thursday, 6th of June 2024, many heads of state, veterans and officials will commemorate the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings and the Battle of Normandy. Remember the heroes, remember the sacrifice, remember that freedom comes at a cost, and never let the echoes of their bravery fade.
I ask you guys to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you.